If you are watching this lesson, I'm going to assume it means that you're absent from class. So before you actually continue watching this video, please make sure that you've already answered the opinion questions and submitted that assignment before you begin this one. If you've already done that, then you should be continuing on with this lesson. So for today's class and our next class, we will be spending time talking about vaccines. So we're going to just look at what a vaccine is, how they work, and offer protection for us, and also how they are made. So a vaccine is typically an injection. So it would be given through a needle and a syringe like we see in the picture here. Sometimes they're in an inhaled vaccine where they're given kind of like a nasal spray. But in either case, no matter what form a form of vaccine is, it's going to be made from small amounts of weakened or dead germs or pathogens that are able to cause disease. So that could include viruses, bacteria, or toxins. What they're going to do is get your body ready to fight the disease faster and more efficiently if you're exposed to it in the future. And they're meant to keep you from getting sick at all or getting as sick as you would without the vaccine. The way that vaccines work is going to depend on the type of vaccine. We're going to, in our next lesson, go through the different types of vaccines, but just in general, either part or some component of the pathogen is given to a patient. And it could be just the antigens, it could be mRNA, it could be protein, or it could be the entire pathogen, it's just weakened or dead. That is going to be given to a patient through, again, typically an injection. And what that's going to cause to happen is that the vaccine is enough of a dose to get the person's immune system to create memory cells, but not enough to actually make them sick. You may feel symptoms after a vaccine, but that is just a sign that your immune system's working. A vaccine does not actually make you sick because it's not giving you the pathogen in a way that it could actually hurt you or make you sick. If you're exposed to that pathogen that you're vaccinated against in the future, then your immune system already has those memory cells, and those memory cells are able to respond much more quickly than if it was the first time you were exposed to the pathogen. Here we can see when you're given your vaccine, and again, because the more common form is injection, that's going to be what we're looking at here. So a vaccine will be given to a person that is going to cause our macrophages or antigen-presenting cells to display the antigens on their surface once they engulf the part of the pathogen or the pathogen that was injected. That can then display the antigen on the surface, which will allow helper T cells to come along, attached to that antigen on the macrophage, and that can do a few things. It's going to clone other helper T cells, and those helper T cells are going to get killer T cells involved as well as B cells involved. So those killer T cells can then change into active killer T cells where they will destroy cells that are infected by, in this case, whatever was in the vaccine. The plasma or the B cells that can either be activated by the helper T cells or directly respond from the vaccine will create plasma cells, and those will create antibodies. Those antibodies can attach to the antigen from the pathogen or whatever form of the pathogen is used to inactivate it, but in doing so, it's making memory cells for all of these things. If you are exposed after vaccination, then you already have those memory cells made. So you have memory helper T cells, memory killer T cells, and memory B cells. So those are already made. They already know how to respond to that pathogen. And they can keep you from getting sick at all. You may feel a little symptomatic, may feel kind of crappy, but you don't get actually sick, or you don't get as sick as you would without the vaccine, or you don't get sick at all. You might not even know you were exposed to the pathogen. Now, it is possible to get the disease, we'll say, after you were vaccinated, and that does not mean that the vaccine didn't work. So we'll use the COVID vaccines, and then I'll also talk about the flu vaccine really quick. So with the COVID vaccines, there have been reports of people developing COVID after they were vaccinated. But after any vaccine, it does take a couple weeks for you to build up that memory, that immunity. So in this case, people were most likely exposed either before they got their vaccine or shortly after, before their full immunity was there to protect them. It doesn't mean that the vaccine doesn't work. It was just that their exposure to the pathogen was before their body was able to build up that memory against what they were vaccinated against. In the case of the flu vaccine, and we'll talk more about this again in the next lesson, but with the flu shot, what they do when they're making that each year is the flu virus is a virus that mutates quite often. A lot of viruses do. And what they do in creating that vaccine is they look at what the most common strains of the flu appear to be for that particular year, and they include those in the vaccine. That doesn't mean that those are the only forms of the flu that will be around that year, but the vaccine will protect you against the forms of the flu virus that were included in the vaccine. So it is possible to get your flu shot and still get the flu. That does not mean that your flu shot did not work. That just means that you were exposed to a form of the flu virus that was not included in the flu shot for that year. So you can still get sick, but if you have the flu shot, if you got that vaccination, it will, in the majority of cases, keep you from getting as sick as you would if you had not gotten the flu shot at all. Sometimes people also say that, I was sick after I got my flu shot. It's not, you're not sick from the flu shot. The flu shot cannot make you sick because it doesn't have the active flu virus in it. But you may feel symptomatic afterwards. You may feel kind of crappy for a day or two, but it's just your immune system responding. So you may feel some of those symptoms while you're building up immunity, but you don't actually get sick from vaccines. So let's take a look at how they are produced. There's going to be different stages to the production of vaccines. So you have a question in your assignment asking for the 3 stages, and these are those 3. So we have to go through lab tests, clinical trials, and production and monitoring of the vaccine. So in producing vaccines, again, the first stage will be lab tests. And in this stage, scientists are going to try to determine a way to best protect against the pathogen that they're trying to create a vaccine for. Typically, scientists do years and years of research on the vaccine before they go on to clinical trials. So some people are seeming to be hesitant to get the COVID vaccine because they think it was produced too quickly, so it can't be safe. So if they are not aware or not educated about this topic, it's easy to see why they would think that. But with the COVID vaccines, especially the Pfizer and Moderna that were the first mRNA vaccines given on this wide of a scale, they used technology that was already there because they've been looking into vaccines for Ebola and some other diseases that were mRNA vaccines. So the technology has already been looked at for years. It was just modified to protect against COVID in this case. And then we also right now are using the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, and the J&J vaccine is an adenovirus vaccine, and that vaccine technology has been around and used for a long time. So scientists were able to rely on earlier research to get these vaccines out and produced much more quickly than they would if they had started from scratch. So our second stage in getting vaccines would be our clinical trials, and there's 3 phases to that. So the first phase is going to be a small group, and what you're doing is checking if it works, is it safe, finding out what the proper dosage would be. So you want to make sure that it's enough to activate the immune system in the person, but not enough to actually make them sick. And then what are the serious side effects? So you're checking for big issues that would happen. And that's all done during phase 1 with the smallest group of volunteers. Once it seems okay and you have your data collected from phase 1, you would go on to phase 2 where you increase the sample size to several hundred volunteers. When you're doing this, you would look at short-term side effects. How well the vaccine works will be something else you would check into. And then phase 3 is going to increase even more. You would have hundreds or thousands of volunteers in this phase. And here you're checking, is the vaccine safe? Is it effective? Is it doing what it's supposed to do? And what are the most common side effects? Because you're going to have to report all of these things to the FDA. The FDA is a government organization, and part of their job is to review public health things. So medications before they're given to people, vaccines before they're given to people. And what the FDA is doing in their review is they're checking and they're looking through the data from the companies to see if it's safe, is the vaccine effective, and if the benefits outweigh the risk. So do the benefits of getting the vaccine outweigh the risk of potential side effects, or so is it better to get the vaccine and risk getting side effects, or is it better to not get the vaccine at all and get the disease? Something that happened recently was that they stopped the J&J vaccines because there were reports of blood clots in people. And while blood clots are concerning, it's still a very low percentage. So after they stopped giving them for a little while so they could review things and figure things out, they decided that the benefits of the J&J vaccine outweigh the risk of possibly developing blood clots in response to that vaccine. So they decided that your vaccine protecting you from severe COVID and hospitalization and death from getting the vaccine is much more of a benefit than the possible very low risk of developing blood clots from that vaccine. So they decided to continue using that, or resume using that, I should say. So again, they're going to check if it's safe, if it's effective, and if the benefits outweigh the risk. The final step in producing a vaccine is the actual manufacturing. So once a vaccine would be licensed by the FDA, they're going to be produced in batches that we call lots. And that's going to allow kind of tracking of the vaccine, where they go, who they're given to. Those lots will each be tested for safety, purity, and potency before they would be sent to like pharmacies or doctors' offices to be given to people. And then the FDA also will inspect on a regular basis the facilities that are producing the vaccines to make sure that they're doing it right and everything is being done safely. Again, in our next lesson, we will talk more about vaccines, but this should have just been a background for you. So you're going to use this video, if you haven't done it while you were watching, to help you answer the questions in your assignment. You also need to watch the video in the folder for today called What If We Stop Vaccinations, or What Would Happen If We Stop Vaccinations. And you'll watch that and then finish the questions in your assignment, and then make sure you submit your assignment. Again, next class we will be talking more about vaccines, the different types, and the diseases that they protect us against.